You were taught to be kind, to be generous, to see the good in people. But what if I told you not everyone deserves your kindness, especially not narcissists? See, being nice to a narcissist doesn't earn you peace. It earns you pain. It doesn't build respect. It builds control. And today we're going to talk about why protecting your peace means stopping the cycle and never being nice to a narcissist again. You ever notice how the nicer you are to certain people, the worse they treat you? It's backwards, right? You give more, they take more. You forgive, they push again. You try to see the good and they show you the worst. That's not just a pattern. That's a system. And narcissists thrive in it. Here's the truth that hurts a little at first, but heals a lot later. Being nice to a narcissist is like handing over the keys to your peace and then acting surprised when they drive it off a cliff. They don't interpret kindness the way healthy people do. When you show them patience, compassion, or even silence, you're thinking, I'm being mature, I'm being respectful, I'm keeping the peace. But they're thinking, I've got control, I'm winning. They don't see grace, they see leverage. And when you hand it to them, they will use it every single time. This is where it gets tricky because you're not being fake. You're genuinely trying. You're trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. You're hoping maybe if you're just a little more understanding, they'll soften. They'll wake up. They'll get it. But narcissists don't respond to kindness with change. They respond with more manipulation. Your niceness doesn't make them reflect. It makes them rehearse. It gives them more space to perfect their act. And here's what's really going on when you're dealing with a narcissist. Every time you give in with a smile, you're training them. You're teaching them how to treat you. It's okay. When it's not, I understand when they don't deserve it. Every quiet exit instead of a firm boundary. All of that becomes a signal, not that you're kind, but that you're accessible, that they can spin the story again, that they can cross the line again. And they will, because they don't change based on your kindness. They change their tactics. And what makes it even more painful is that often you're just trying to keep the peace. Maybe you were raised to be the fixer. Maybe your whole life you've been told, just be the bigger person. And sure, there's a place for grace. There's a place for understanding, but not when it costs your self-respect. Not when the other person sees your effort not as love, but as weakness. Narcissists are experts at identifying who they can exploit, and niceness is the bait. They don't want authentic connection. They want control. They don't build with you. They build around you with lies, guilt, silence, or charm. Whatever gets them back in the center. And the more you excuse it, the deeper they root in your life. That's the part that most people miss. You're not dealing with someone who's just hard to love. You're dealing with someone who sees your love as a tool. And if you're not careful, that tool will be used against you until there's nothing left but confusion, burnout, and broken boundaries. Let me be clear. I'm not saying stop being a good person. I'm saying stop offering your goodness where it's only being used. There's a difference between kindness and self-sacrifice. There's a difference between patience and enabling. If your niceness is making you smaller, quieter, more anxious, or constantly apologizing for things that aren't even yours, that's not strength. That's survival. And you deserve better than that. You're allowed to be kind and clear. You're allowed to love people and leave them when they keep hurting you. You're allowed to say, no more, without explaining yourself for the 100th time. Because the most powerful thing you can do with a narcissist is stop feeding the system. Step out of the game. Let their manipulation echo into silence. That's not cruel. That's clarity. That's peace. So the next time you find yourself tempted to be nice, just to keep the peace, ask yourself, whose peace am I protecting? Theirs or mine? Because being nice to a narcissist isn't noble. It's permission. One of the hardest things to accept when you're dealing with a narcissist is that they will use your best qualities against you. The things that make you decent, caring, grounded, those are the exact things they'll twist. Not because they misunderstand them, but because they know exactly how powerful those qualities are and they know how to weaponize them. Your empathy, they'll call it overreacting when you finally set a boundary. Your patience, they'll stretch it until you snap, then blame you for losing it. Your loyalty, that just means you'll stay while they do what they want. And your morals, That becomes the blueprint for their manipulation. Here's how it plays out. You try to hold space. You give them the benefit of the doubt. You say things like, I just want to understand, or I believe everyone deserves compassion. And those are beautiful things with the right people. But narcissists aren't interested in understanding. They're interested in advantage. So they take those values you live by, the fairness, the grace, the self-awareness, and they twist them into guilt, into obligation, into silence. Suddenly, you're the 1 second guessing yourself. You're the one walking on eggshells, wondering if maybe you were too harsh, if maybe you should have said it a different way, if maybe it's your job to keep the relationship steady. And that's not an accident. That's the outcome they want. Because if they can keep you tangled in your own conscience, they don't have to look at theirs. See, narcissists are experts at flipping the script. You try to hold them accountable. They say you're too sensitive. You bring up a boundary. They say you're selfish. You need space. Now you're abandoning them. Every move you make in alignment with your values, they will reframe as a personal attack on them. And if you're someone who deeply values fairness and kindness, that lands hard. It hits where it hurts because you actually care. And that's what they count on. They know you don't want to be the bad guy. They know you're trying to do the right thing. So they build a story where doing the right thing means constantly bending, constantly sacrificing, constantly excusing. And they do it with just enough charm, just enough vulnerability to make you feel like walking away would be cruel. But let's call it what it is. That's not love. That's emotional blackmail dressed up in guilt and confusion. That's someone who knows your character and uses it to keep you controlled. And listen, it's easy to fall into, especially if you were raised to believe that being good means keeping the peace no matter what, especially if you've been taught that your value comes from how much you can give, how much you can fix, how much you can absorb without flinching. But there's nothing noble about letting someone weaponize your heart. There's nothing righteous about being used. You are allowed to have values and boundaries. You are allowed to say, I can love you, but I won't let you twist me. You are allowed to walk away, not because you've stopped caring, but because you've started caring about yourself. When a narcissist tries to make your integrity feel like a liability, that's when you know you're not in a relationship, you're in a performance. And the longer you keep trying to play your part, the more it costs you your peace, your clarity, your identity. Because here's the truth, they'll never admit they don't want a partner. They want a mirror, someone to reflect their version of the world back to them, where they're always right, always the victim, always justified. And if you stop playing along, if you hold to your truth and refuse to be guilted back into the cycle, that's when the mask slips. That's when the story changes. And that's when you know you were never the problem. So when your morals are being turned against you, when your kindness becomes a trap, when doing what's right feels like it's slowly draining you, that's your sign. Not to be louder, not to be nicer, but to be done. One of the most painful illusions to let go of is the belief that if you just love someone enough, they'll change. That if you just show them patience, give them room, stay committed, eventually they'll see the light, that your love will be enough to wake them up, heal them, inspire them to be better. But here's what's real. Love doesn't fix narcissism. Kindness doesn't break through entitlement. And no amount of understanding will make someone change who doesn't want to change. That truth hurts because you probably gave it your all. You showed up, you listened, you forgave, you stayed when you should have walked. You put their needs first over and over, thinking this time it'll land. This time they'll get it. And every time you made space for them to grow, they filled it with excuses or silence, or worse, they twisted it into more control. Because narcissists don't respond to love with gratitude. They respond with expectation. Your love becomes the baseline, the standard. And the moment you ask for something back, respect, honesty, reciprocity, suddenly you're the difficult one, the selfish one, the ungrateful one. See, they don't see love the way you do. You see it as connection, as shared effort, as mutual care. They see it as a tool, something to gain admiration, something to manipulate loyalty, something to keep you tethered, not something they have to protect or nurture. So while you're trying to lead with love, they're leading with strategy. And every time you extend more grace, They take it as confirmation that they don't need to change because you'll stay. You'll keep showing up. You'll keep hoping. And that's what they count on, your hope. They won't tell you that outright, but they know it's there. That little voice inside you that says, or they're just hurting, or they didn't mean it, SS, or maybe if I explain it differently, they'll understand this time. But they won't. Not because they can't, but because they don't want to. There's no incentive to change when your behavior works for them. Why take responsibility when they can keep blaming you? Why grow when you keep carrying the emotional weight for both of you? Why reflect when you keep covering for the damage? You see, loving someone who won't change doesn't make you a savior. It makes you a supply. That's harsh, I know, but it's real, because when someone refuses to meet you halfway, when they show you again and again who they are, and you keep responding with love, they don't feel moved. They feel entitled. And here's where it gets heavy. The longer you stay, the more you lose your sense of reality. You start shrinking, doubting yourself, asking, is it me? You confuse trauma with love. You confuse adrenaline with passion. You confuse anxiety with connection. And it starts to feel like chaos is just part of the relationship. But that's not love. That's emotional survival. That's your nervous system trying to make sense of a cycle that keeps hurting you. And the longer you stay in it, the harder it gets to imagine anything different. But you can step out, not by trying harder, not by giving more, but by finally accepting the truth. You can't love someone's dysfunction. You can't care someone into being self-aware. You can't pour enough into someone who's committed to taking. Because real love, it's not about losing yourself to keep someone else whole. It's not about hoping someone sees your worth after they've stepped on it repeatedly. It's not about staying loyal to their potential while they keep showing you their pattern. You deserve more than that. You deserve peace, clarity, reciprocity. And you don't have to earn it through struggle. You don't have to suffer to prove you're worthy. You just have to stop confusing effort with value. So if you've been waiting for love to be enough to change them, hear this: love was never the problem. It's who you gave it to. When you're dealing with a narcissist, silence doesn't bring peace. It brings power, and not to you. See, what most people don't realize is that narcissists don't look for connection. They look for compliance. They don't want conversation. They want control. And every time you keep quiet just to avoid conflict, they see that not as maturity, but as surrender. So you start biting your tongue. You let the little jabs slide. You ignore the gaslighting, the manipulation, the subtle digs. You start walking around your own life like it's a minefield, thinking if you just stay calm enough, small enough, understanding enough, maybe they'll stay happy. Maybe they won't explode. Maybe they won't punish you with silence or guilt or blame. But here's the thing. Narcissists don't want peace. They want dominance. And the quieter you get, the more room they take. The more you bend, the more they push. And then you look up one day and realize you're not being loving. You're being erased. Because when you confuse silence with strength, or niceness with love, or compliance with respect, that's when the damage happens slowly, quietly, consistently. And it starts to feel normal. Like this is just what you do in a relationship. Like this is what it takes to keep things together. But let me ask you this: if the only way to avoid a fight is to lose your voice, is it really a relationship, or is it a performance? The truth is, narcissists don't want equals. They want echo chambers. They want someone who reflects back what they want to hear, who keeps the spotlight on them, who won't challenge the narrative. So when you stay quiet to avoid drama, what you're really doing is reinforcing their reality and erasing your own. They take your silence as agreement, your emotional restraint as weakness, your self-control as their victory. You're thinking you're taking the high road, but to them, you're just staying in your place. And they love that because now they don't have to change. They don't have to reflect. They don't have to grow. You're doing all the adjusting and they're doing all the taking. It's subtle at first. Maybe it starts with you avoiding certain topics. You stop bringing up things that bother you because it never goes anywhere. You let them win arguments they shouldn't even be having. You stop asking for your needs because it always turns into a guilt trip. And somewhere along the way, you stop recognizing yourself. That's not love. That's not peace. That's conditioning. And it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to see it for what it is. Real connection requires truth, even uncomfortable truth. It requires two people who can sit in conflict without turning it into chaos. But narcissists don't do that. They use conflict as a tool, either to dominate or to disappear. So you'll come chasing after them, apologizing for things you didn't do just to get things back to normal. But normal with a narcissist always means you giving more and them doing less. It means you managing their emotions while ignoring your own. It means you choosing quiet, not because you're at peace, but because you're exhausted. You don't deserve that. You don't deserve to live muted, to constantly filter your words, your tone, your reactions, just to avoid setting them off. You don't deserve to be praised for how much you can tolerate. That's not strength. That's survival. And no relationship worth keeping should make you feel like you're disappearing just to maintain it. So if you've been keeping the peace by staying quiet, let this be your wake-up call. Peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of respect. And without respect, your silence isn't noble. It's just permission. You're allowed to speak. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to challenge the lie. And if that makes them uncomfortable, if that makes them lash out or leave, good. That's not your burden to carry. That's a weight you were never meant to hold. Because when compliance is mistaken for connection, the only way back to yourself is to stop being silent. There's a lie a lot of us were taught growing up that being strong means being tough, loud, aggressive. That if you're not raising your voice or standing your ground in some dramatic way, you're weak. And on the flip side, if you're kind, if you're calm, if you lead with empathy, that must mean you're soft, easy to push around, easy to manipulate, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Real strength is not about being loud. It's not about overpowering anyone. It's about knowing who you are and not needing to prove it. It's being able to hold your boundaries without needing to explain them a dozen times. It's showing up with clarity, not chaos. It's being able to walk away from what doesn't serve you without making it a war. That kind of strength doesn't always look like strength, especially to a narcissist. To them, if you're not yelling, you're weak. If you're not fighting back, they think you've given up. If you're being kind, they think you're clueless. Because in their world, power is about domination, not dignity. But the strongest people I know are the ones who stay grounded in their values when everything around them is trying to pull them out of character. The ones who don't stoop to the level of manipulation, who don't fire back with insults, who don't try to win by becoming the same kind of person they're walking away from. You can be kind and clear. You can be calm and firm. You can care and still say, F off, that's enough. That's what narcissists don't expect. They expect your kindness to be endless, your forgiveness to be automatic, your patience to stretch no matter how many times they break trust. But when that same kindness comes with boundaries, when your calm also comes with consequences, that's when they panic. That's when they push harder. That's when the mask slips because they don't know how to control someone who knows their worth and doesn't need to perform it. And this is where so many people get stuck, thinking they have to choose between being strong and being good. Like you have to either be nice and get walked over or be harsh and finally get respect. But that's not it. The power is in the balance. You can speak truth without shouting. You can stand up for yourself without tearing someone else down. You can exit the room, the relationship, the cycle, not because you're cold, but because you finally understand that peace doesn't come from staying quiet. It comes from being rooted. When you're dealing with a narcissist, strength is found in not playing the game. It's found in not defending yourself against lies that were never meant to be fair. It's found in not explaining yourself to someone who's already decided you're the villain no matter what you say. It's strong to say nothing when they're baiting you. It's strong to walk away when they're trying to pull you back in with guilt. It's strong to stop hoping for accountability that will never come. That takes more courage than any screaming match ever will, because walking away with your character intact, with your boundaries firm, with your peace preserved, that's power. That's growth. That's maturity. And that's exactly what they can't stand. They don't know what to do with someone who no longer needs their validation. Someone who isn't trying to fix them. someone who doesn't need closure to move forward. They can't manipulate what they can't reach.